They're thrashing around and bashing their heads into concrete walls and breaking their sides of their faces and so on. Yeah, it was a chamber of horrors, basically. Yeah.
What happened in this Brisbane street 30 years ago is still burnt into Peter Reid's memory.
If you looked out, you would have seen people standing on both sides of the road. And those horses being winched up in the air and then slung across the road and then dumped into the back of the open trucks. And then, of course, the press with their cameras were in this exact same spots.
11 thoroughbreds have died this week at adjoining stables in the heart of Queensland's racing industry.
It was September 1994. A gruesome mystery had made national headlines, throwing the country's horse racing industry into disarray. And this was ground zero, the stables belonging to the well-known trainer Vic Rail.
Some in the industry say Rail is widely disliked and his horses were poisoned as a payback.
Veterinarian Peter Reid was the first to respond.
The nighttime hours were even worse when it's gloomy and then you're on your own or only with one person, then horses dying in agonal struggles and you're trying to help them, give them a peaceful death and not let them damage themselves.
Quite gruesome in a way.
Oh, very much so, yeah. That's what Hendra virus can do. It attacks all organs in the body and particularly has focus on the lungs and the brain. So the horses are actually dying because they can't breathe because their lungs are filling up full of fluids. Well, 13 horses that died altogether and 7 recovered and had antibodies. I was monitoring not only those ones but the other in-contact horses, and there were foals here as well.
Not long after, Peter's client and friend Vic Rail succumbed to similar symptoms.
Terrifying, yeah, absolutely terrifying, yeah. We didn't know whether they were related.
They were. Vic had contracted the same deadly disease as his horses.
It was a new virus altogether, never been seen before in the world. The obvious question was then, if this is a new virus, where the hell did it come from? How did it get there?
Two years later, the virus was named Hendra after the suburb that saw its first outbreak. Scientists confirmed it was carried by flying foxes and shed in their excrement, then contracted by horses in contaminated pastures, feed or water.
Good boy. Hendra circulates in bat populations, and the bats, we see them all over Queensland, New South Wales, down south in Victoria, and they're not just in Australia, but also across the continent and in Asia and in Africa. And it is currently estimated that 70 to 80% of bats, sometime in their lifetime, they've carried the virus. And that's a point of concern for us because it means they can still transmit to horses and to people.
There have been 68 outbreaks resulting in 110 horse deaths since its discovery, including one in southeast Queensland last week, a horse that wasn't vaccinated.
We're monitoring it, as you would expect, very closely, but the risk of transfer is very small. It's not negligible, but it is very small, and we continue to monitor and liaise with the people who were in close contact with the horse, but there is no vaccine for humans for the Hendra virus.
As for previous human fatalities, there have been 4. The mortality rate is close to 60%. Dr. Ariel Isaacs is working to reduce that number to 0.
What we're trying to do is get ahead of the curve, and if there is an outbreak in horses or an outbreak in people, that we have a therapeutic or a vaccine ready to deploy and to protect the population. But N4 is very similar to Nipah Bangladesh. Well, it's like a variant of Nipah, essentially, as well.
Dr. Isaacs is part of a team that makes vaccines and therapies for emerging deadly viruses with pandemic potential.
And one of those is Nipah viruses. So that's the virus family that includes Hendra and Nipah virus, which is something that is now emerging across Southeast Asia and India and Bangladesh in particular. There has been some cases where there's possible human-to-human transmission, and that's where you're seeing the potential for really explosive outbreaks.
It was in this lab at the University of Queensland Dr. Isaacs discovered his latest breakthrough. Introducing our unlikely hero. Not this guy. This guy, Pedro, the alpaca.
We actually collaborated with a group out of Chile who have an alpaca farm, and alpacas make these incredible antibodies which are known as single-chain antibodies. Basically, we provided the what we call the antigen, which is a vaccine essentially, to the group in Chile, and they immunised Pedro, and Pedro's cells start making these wonderful, magical antibodies, which we call nanobodies, and from that we isolate a particular one that has a really high affinity, is really able to protect against Nipah in vitro, and then we're able to test that actually in animal models and show that that protects against infection. I think we were optimistic that this would work, but it was even better than we can even have predicted.
At the same time. So by targeting these two parts...
They called the nanobody DS90. How it works is extremely complicated, but the key takeaway...
This can stop a virus in its tracks.
Yeah, so it stops the protein from changing its form, locks it in its native conformation like that, and then the virus cannot enter the cell.
The next step is turning it into a human-ready therapy. They say it has the potential to be a lifesaver.
So once the nanobody binds, it barely ever lets go. It's really exciting to see.
And so what's the big goal here?
We're all about being prepared, so we need to have stockpiles of vaccines and therapeutics ready to give to people in case there's an outbreak. So if people get infected, vets, handlers, owners, that they all have a vaccine or therapy. And all we know is that this virus can transmit potentially from human to human. Vaccine or therapy will allow us to contain it and prevent widespread infections.
Hopefully no pandemic then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Back in Hendra, luxury homes have replaced most of the stables and families have moved in.
What's it like seeing the street like this now? I mean, it's completely
It's great.
changed.
Well, it's great to see it changed. Yeah, it'd be, I'd have more nightmares if it was still the same as what it used to be like. I mean, it's always traumatic coming out and doing an interview again. It takes a while to unwind from it, I've got to tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry to do
But
this to you,
I can
man.
understand the interest.
Yeah.
And if it has the benefit of reminding people about how horrendous it was and the ways to stop it happening, that's what I'm all for.